If I could call Banjo Tooie one thing, it'd be controversial. Go on any internet forum and you'll see differing opinions on it everywhere. Some people love the game, saying it's the best in the series, and others hate it, saying it failed at everything the first game got right. And the funny thing is, when Tooie first came out, it was received with critical acclaim, but over the years, people's opinions on it have definitely soured. I've done some research into why I think this is, and I think I've narrowed it down to 3 main points. Too much backtracking, too many minigames, and the levels are too big. These are all valid criticisms in their own right, but I wanted to put them to the test. I wanted to see how Tooie stacked up to Kazooie in each of these 3 categories. So that's what I did. I compared the amount of backtracking, minigames, and size of levels between the 2 games, and the following are my results. Backtracking in a video game is basically any time you have to go back to an area you've already been to complete a task or push the story forward in some way. For example, needing an ability in level 1 of a game that you don't learn until level 2. Once you learn the ability in level 2, you have to go back to level 1 and use it to claim your prize. Situations where you have to complete an objective in level 1 to move the story forward in level 2 aren't considered backtracking, as you aren't actually going back to the level you've already played. So Jiggy's like help the aliens kids won't apply in this situation, because even though you have to complete a step in Jolly Roger's Lagoon to make this Jiggy accessible in Hellfire Pete's, you don't actually have to go back to Jolly Roger's Lagoon to collect this Jiggy. Okay, now that we've established the rules, let's quickly go through every instance of backtracking in Banjo Tooie. Keep in mind, this is for Jiggies only, so instances where you backtrack to get Jinjos or honeycomb pieces are not included in this count. Okay, here we go. Mayhan Temple only has one, the Prison Compound Pillars Jiggy, which requires the Bill Drill move learned in Glitter Gulch Mine. Speaking of Glitter Gulch Mine, this level has 3 instances of backtracking. Reuniting Dilberta and Bully and Bill, the Braving the Power Shed Jiggy, which requires the split up move learned in Witchy World, and the Behind the Waterfall Jiggy, which requires the Springy Shoes ability learned in Pterodactyland. Witchy World only has 1 instance of backtracking, where you have to use the Tatsy Pack ability learned in Pterodactyland to complete the Rounding Up the Boggy Children Jiggy. Jolly Roger's Bay has Hatch Tip Top Sun, which requires Hatch, which again is learned in Pterodactyland. It also has the Inside the Smuggler's Cavern Jiggy, which needs the Glide ability from Hellfire Pete's. And finally, Clean Piglet's Pool, which requires the player to turn off the sewage in Grunty's Industries and push George the Ice Cube off the ledge in Cloud Cuckoo Land. Pterodactyland has 3. Warm and feed the Oogle Boogle tribe, which requires food from Witchy World. Help Scrotty with her kids, which you need to heal one in Isle of Hags and free one from Witchy World. And get Drippy Water, which requires you to drain the lake in Cloud Cuckoo Land. Grunty's Industries has 2. Take a dip in the Toxic Waste and wade across the Toxic Waste Jiggies, which both require the Shack Pack ability learned in Hailfire Pete's. And finally, Hailfire Pete's has the Through the Stomping Grounds and Activate the Oil Drill Jiggies, which requires the players to go back to Pterodactyland and Grunty's Industries. So, 16 total instances overall. Let's take a look at the number of times you're required to backtrack in Banjo Kazooie. Freezeezy Peak. When you're required to beat Boggy a second time, you need the Turbo Trainers, which you acquire in the next level, Gobby's Valley. And that's it. There's only 1 case of backtracking in the entirety of Banjo Kazooie. So here are the total counts, 16 for Banjo Tooie and 1 for Banjo Kazooie. So I would say the criticism of too much backtracking is valid in this case. Next up is too many minigames. I'm basically defining anything that has a time limit or a score counter as a minigame. There are certain minigames like copying Mozart's song and the races against Canary Mary that are different enough from the regular gameplay that I would still classify them as minigames, even though they don't have a time limit or a score. Okay, so here is every minigame in Banjo Kazooie. Treasure Trove Cove, spelling out Banjo Kazooie. Clanker's Cavern, through Clanker's Green Rings. Bubble Goop Swamp, the Tip Top Choir, and eat more yubblies and grumblies than Mr. Vile. Freezeezy Peak, protect the Twinklies, and race against Boggy. Gobby's Valley, Pyramid Maze, and Pyramid Memory Match. Mad Monster Mansion, Copy Mott's Hand Song, and Tumblr's Spelling Minigame. Click Clock Woods, Zumba's Minigame. Okay, so that's everything. Now on to Tooie. Mayhan Temple, Target Sands Temple Challenge, and Mayan Kickball Tournament. Glitter Gulch Mine, Ordnance Storage Challenge, and Canary Mary Race. Witchy World, Dodgems Challenge, Hoop Hurry Challenge, Balloon Burst Challenge, and Saucer of Peril Ride. Jolly Rogers Lagoon, Grunty's Submarine Challenge. Pterodactyland, Inside Champa's Belly's Shootout. Grunty's Industry, Packing Room Challenge, and Clinker's Cavern. Hailfire Peak, Coliseum Professional Kickball. Cloud Cuckoo Land, Guffo's Trash Can Challenge. Canary Mary's Rematch, Zubba's Nest, and Pot of Gold Minigame. So the total counts for both games are 11 for Banjo Kazooie and 17 for Tooie, which is honestly closer than I thought it would be. The problem is that Banjo Kazooie has 9 worlds and Tooie only has 8. So if you look at the average minigames per world, which is a sentence I never thought I would say, the difference becomes more noticeable, with Kazooie having 1.22 minigames per world and Tooie having a 2.125 minigames per world. So essentially you're getting double the minigames per world in Tooie than you would in Kazooie. So I would say the too many minigames complaint is also valid. And finally, we come to the worlds are too big complaint. This one was a little difficult. Banjo Kazooie and Tooie both keep track of how much time you've spent playing per level, so I tried to track down an average playtime for each level, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any such stat. So I had to get a little creative. I took the average time to finish the games and the average time to 100% the games, and divided them by the number of worlds in each game. It's not a perfect solution, but I think it's close enough where we can be happy with it. As you can see, Banjo Tooie dominates in both categories with an average of 2.94 hours for 100% and 2 hours for finishing the game. In fact, the average for finishing Tooie is higher than the average for 100% in Kazooie, which is just insane. And if I haven't convinced you, I also counted the number of words in a written guide for Kazooie and Tooie, which again isn't a perfect method, but it gives you some idea of a level length. And as you can see, Tooie once again dominates by having almost twice the amount of words as Kazooie's, despite having 1 less level. By the way, look at Grunty's Industry, 1812 words. What a fucking nightmare that world is. So all in all, I would say the criticism of the worlds being too big is also valid. 3 different criticisms and 3 different validations. I tried my best to remain impartial and try to judge both these games as fairly as I could, but it seems like the haters are right on this one. However, all I really proved was there's too much backtracking, too many minigames, and the worlds are too big. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you like backtracking minigames and big worlds, you're gonna love this game. And if you don't, you're gonna hate it. I just hope I was able to shed some light on the reason behind people's hate for Banjo Tooie.